Boom, just like that. It's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's party time with the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson. That man beside me, he is the man with the angelic voice, Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Munson. Another awesome Thursday night and another episode of Ring Respect Radio. What shall we all talk about?
Oh, we got lots we could be talking about. Of course, the name of the game is going to be Bloodsport X here tonight. That is our big review, but we could talk about some other stuff in the meantime and in between time, of course. But I just want to mention that for the first time, we are simulcasting on many different locations here tonight, Papa Smokes, because I kind of set up something interesting as a trial run. So not only are we on the Video Bros YouTube channel, but OLE's YouTube channel, Twitch. You can also find us on that X right now and on Facebook as well too. So follow along on all social media and all that wonderful things. I'm going to throw that banner up for you all so that you know where to go. And look at this. I got so many banners here. I don't know where to go to. I gotta skip past the most expensive one to get to the other tickers here just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, too soon for that one, Munson.
Don't want to kill the entire amount of money that we have to spend on this here show right off the hop. But say hello to our good friends in the chat. We got Ed Fries up in the house. Bloodsport time. You bet, Ed. Ed
Right.
just got off of his episode of Marvel Talk yesterday with Andre C. talking about the X-Men 97 series. And damn, Papa Smokes, that is not only a great podcast, but what a great show. They had the opportunity to talk about the first 5 episodes. Epic. Very epic.
Very cool. It looks like a lot of people watch those too. Ed's the man. He's got his finger in various different areas of the entertainment business.
He sure does. Look at this. It's the other video, bro. Our brother. It's Basser up in the house. Well, hello, fellas. Hello, Basser. Thank you for joining us here tonight. And thank you for joining us on April the 20th, my friend, because we got that big smoke show coming up from PP Dub. Yes, that's right. PPW presents smoke show coming up here on Saturday, April the 20th, which means, Papa Smokes, in a 1 week's time, we got to kind of have our annual 420-ish celebration here on the show. So I thought, who could we bring onto the show to join the Video Bros for this one? Oh, we're bringing back our boy NJ. He's coming to party with us here in 1 week's time. NJ's going to be hanging out with the Video Bros. We're going to be talking all things Prairie Pro Wrestling as we're going into Smoke Show. And yes, we will be having just a chill, relaxed time with one of our favorite friends from the PPW Nation.
Sounds good, Munson. I'm already pumped for this. It's going to work for the 420 occasion and all that. And always one of the best guys to talk about wrestling with.
And saying WWE owned Bloodsport this year. You know, everybody had a lot of good shit going on this weekend, and so I'm not going to, for once, disagree that WWE didn't bring it. They really did bring it, Pop Smokes, and I think even you and I were talking before this show went live. Even you yourself checked out a little bit of WrestleMania, and for once, WrestleMania felt like a WrestleMania, the way a WrestleMania should. It felt like big business, and it was great right across. Even the stuff that wasn't great was kind of like pizza. Even when it's not great, it's still fucking good. You know that.
Sure. And it's been a long time since I've watched a WrestleMania. I've watched a couple of Royal Rumbles throughout the year because I like that event and I like the format and the suspense and the excitement of the Royal Rumble. I'll check one of those out anytime, even if I don't know all the talent. But I haven't been watching WrestleMania over the years, but as I explained last week, kind of intrigued by some of the storylines they have going on, particularly the main event picture. And I thought, hell, I'm going to watch some of this. And I watched a good handful of matches that I kind of cherry picked. I wasn't going to watch Logan Paul and Kevin Owens and those guys. I'm not watching that. And there were a few other things I didn't want to watch, but the main events of night 1 and night 2 were pretty good. I thought the best match probably of the entire card was the tag team of The Rock and Roman Reigns against Rollins and Rhodes. That match had it all. You could tell that they worked a long time on that match to get that going, and it had a lot of suspense. And one of the big questions that nobody asked going into that match was, what would The Rock be like in the ring after all this time? And Still, nobody had to say anything about it. He looked great. He still had pretty good timing. They didn't have him doing all the stuff, but still awesome, man, for a guy in his 50s. And yeah, they throw a big show for WrestleMania now. It's like the Super Bowl. It's gigantic. Excuse me, and I couldn't help but notice the Philadelphia's football arena with 3 tiers of fans. I mean, my God, what a massive show.
Yeah, and we got Bastard saying Rock looked great. I thought he'd be too jacked to move smooth at all. And yeah, I mean, I think that was always going to be the question. What could Rock do? I kind of thought put him in a tag team match was to maybe protect what he might be lacking after all this time,
Yeah,
and that wasn't really the case. It seemed to be like Rock did a little bit more heavy lifting than Roman did in that particular match, allowing Roman to kind of be at ease going into his main event with Cody. It almost built that tension about the whole Cody can't possibly finish the story because Roman took less of the heavy hits in the tag match. Now he's got the bloodline rules match up ahead of him. Cody has not a hope in the world. His only buddy, Seth Rollins, has been beaten all holy hell, and the next night gets beaten all holy hell by Drew McIntyre again. It's just down on his luck, Seth Rollins, all weekend. The storytelling is great. The stories that they're setting up between the different guys, the progression of Punk and Drew McIntyre, and now adding Damian Priest into this mix and stuff like that. There's a lot of moving cogs that the WWE have going on after WrestleMania for probably the first time in a couple decades.
well, and like any big show, imagine trying to book that. You think you have your idea going a couple of months out or a month out, and then, man, it's business and life, and shit happens, as they say. And Rollins isn't healthy going in. Now Punk can't be a part of it. He's not healthy. Now The Rock becomes involved in it. They want him in there as a baby face, perhaps, and the fans aren't having him. They're booing The Rock out of the building. So I mean, there were all these tinkerings they had to do with the booking of the whole situation, and typical WWE.
Oh, I think we might have temporarily lost you, Papa Spokes. But as we waiting for Papa Spokes to chime back in, I will say Brian's coming in here saying I watched all of WrestleMania because of Papa Spokes. If Papa Spokes could open his heart to it, then he thought he could too. And of course, Basser saying Rock's whole return run here ruined by "Don't You Ever Break My Heart Again" on Monday. So again, we are waiting on the return here of Papa Smokes, I believe. Let me know in the chat if it's me who's frozen or if you're still hearing me and you're seeing the still frame of Mr. Papa Smokes on the screen. If so, we will give Papa Smokes a moment here to recover, or we'll find out what the hell is going on my side of the fence. But I do believe it is Papa Smokes that is frozen as I checked. Yeah, Papa's frozen. Papa will return momentarily. I am certain of that. Here he is. Here's Big Papa back to the picture. How you doing?
Wow, it went right out of the loop on that one. And once again, pisses me off. This is the fast internet that I pay for.
Yeah, it's imagine that the fast internet's paid for in Saskatchewan, and we get barely what I would consider fast some of these days.
Yeah, I get this stuff. Guaranteed at least once per podcast that thing's gonna just drop out for a few seconds.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we talked about the booking of WrestleMania. It's got to be done on the fly. Sometimes the big show has to go, and this one went. It's quite a spectacle, and when it gets that big, it almost doesn't matter how good the matches are in a way. I mean, it's just such a gigantic show that everyone's gonna watch. Everyone's gonna analyze it in their mind afterwards, and it's the kind of thing for wrestling fans. They come from all over the world. It's going to be a memory forever.
It sure will be. And a great time was had. Again, even Brian Carter, thanks to you, opened his heart to some WWE this weekend. Pop Smokes. I've watched all of WrestleMania. So, but yeah, we also watched something else. You and I watched this a little bit, probably a couple days before you did, but I know that you got around to watching it, and that is Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which is what we're going to be talking about here in just a moment. But I think let's go to Brian Carter for a second. We all agree we would rather have El Assassino beat us in the head with a chair than watch the Uso brother match again. Yes, it was one of the weaker matches of the weekend, despite the hype behind it. I'll give you that, Brian. But don't get me wrong. Watching El Assassino do chair shots, I mean, the cynical part of me enjoys it a little bit. I mean, I got to admit, but
Well, just the cynical part. Come on, Munson. It's electrifying action for PPW, but boy, those fans don't like it.
Oh, they don't, and they're not going to like it because I'm sure that chair is going to be out and rocking here come Saturday, April the 20th. So we'll see what happens at Smoke Show. I fear for anybody standing ringside. But yes, talking about Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, Pop Spokes, an event that I had never watched before and never kind of came across my radar, maybe a little bit. I didn't really pay attention. I don't know why exactly. And then I saw these matches being announced, or these fights being announced for it this year. And I see the call letters GCW. And already, I mean, and this is personal, I'm not a GCW fan. I don't like the style that they choose to do. It's not my cup of tea. That aside, that's kind of what put me off of initially hitting the play button until I realized that they had this whole collective. It was the GCW collective. It was a shared arena. It was different companies, different styles, doing different things. So you had Bloodsport X, you had Toshi Joe Pro Wrestling come in and do their thing. Defy did their thing, which again, I saw that one. Our boy Rich Bocchini on the commentary team again. Excellent work. Yeah, and then of course you have Bloodsport, and I'm glad in the end I sat down to watch this, Papa folks, and I haven't got your opinion on this as a whole yet. Some fights clearly better than others, but this was cool with I like the idea of the no ropes. The rules are by referee stoppage, submission, or knockout with these things. It's made to look like kind of a mixed martial arts type fight, but blended with a little bit of professional wrestling to it. No hokey bullshit with weapons or anything like that. A 10 count on the outside, but you're not allowed to chase your opponent to the outside. You have to wait, allow them the opportunity to come back into the ring and continue the fight. Man, and every single one of the people on this particular card seemingly has a mixed martial arts or boxing or actual professional wrestling, like wrestling, catch can wrestling type style background behind them going into this, which makes them legitimate ass kickers in the first place. I like this whole concept.
Yeah, me too. And like you, I'd heard of it before. It kind of sparked my interest a little bit, but I hadn't actually watched any until now. But yeah, it's the gathering of the shooters, all the shooters, not all of them, but a good handful of them that are in pro wrestling coming together to do a little fusion mixed style show just for fun. And I thought it's cool. It's kind of a neat idea. And what they've done here is thrown what isn't actually that large of a show. Like the venue in Philadelphia is called Penn's Landing Caterers. It has a 500 person capacity. This looked pretty full. So let's say they had 400 to 500 people there. Not a whole ton of production value there, Munson. I'm sure you noticed that they had a still cam and one or two moving cameras on the floor next to the ring, and not a lot of zazz to this show. I would almost kind of count that as a negative, except that they're not really going for zazz in this promotion, right? Or at this show, it's kind of meant to be wrestling more down to its bare bones from its shoot origins kind of thing. So yeah, there's not a bunch of pyro and light shows and stuff like that. I think that it makes the TV or taped version look just a little bit uninteresting at times, even though I like videotaped shows and old shows and stuff like that. I feel like this could use just a little something extra. Do you remember a couple of years ago, it was a failed experiment by the WWE, but Shane McMahon had that Monday Night Fight Club thing going, which ended up being kind of a stupid thing. But think of how that looked, that it was dark and there were shadows and kind of a light overhead, and the guys looked different and meaner and tougher in that lighting. Yeah, see, I like the look of that. That was cool. I think that's kind of almost what they should go for here. Just even with the title Bloodsport, kind of harkens back to those Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, Bloodsport, where he's in the Kumite, and that's kind of what this is like, right? A tournament of fighters of all different styles clashing together, and the top one's going to come out. Very cool, very cool. And I like this concept. I just felt like it needed a little bit more something just in the visual presentation.
And I think if you had watched the other shows from this weekend too at the same arena, I think it must just be what's available for that particular arena, what they can do, what they can pull in. Because again, the TJPW show, the Defy show, they all had that same kind of production value to them, so it kind of goes in there. Brian saying, so bare bones wrestling includes having cameras so that people can watch the event remotely. PPW just saying, Brian, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. You know, you come move on out to Saskatoon so that I can have an additional camera guy for ringside, and then maybe we'll have the opportunity for me to produce a live capacity. But then again, Brian, that takes away your whole opportunity to watch that live capacity. So find me someone. Find me someone, Mr. Ryan. Brian also saying what he hates most about GCW is that they book Speedball. Well, guess what? You might not like Bloodsport either because he's on this fight card. I'll tell you what. Let's go through a few of the matches here, or fights here, Pop Smoke, because there's a lot of them. I don't want to dwell on every detail of every fight. But fight number one, we had Akira Way versus Victor Benjamin. Of course, we know Akira as part of the Calling in MLW. That's all I really know him for. And even the commentators here decided to go with the fact that he's typically a guy who gets in there and does death matches. And then they sell it like as if these fights won't do the same kind of damage to Akira because he's used to getting hit with glass tubes and all this. That was one knock I had on this entire thing, was commentary kind of undersold the danger of the particular fights for me at the beginning of this thing. So Akira comes into this. I'm not familiar with Victor Benjamin at all. Not sure if you were, but he looked pretty damn good. He got some good fucking solid strikes in this thing that I really enjoyed.
Oh, for sure. But Victor Benjamin is a guy I've seen on Twitter a few times, or more than a few times, and I've seen some of his tweets about his wrestling life and traveling and stuff. He's married to Lady Frost, I think.
Oh, okay.
And boy, he's got the look of a wrestler. Hey, does he look intimidating? Because he walks the line. He looks like he could be in UFC or something also, with the tats and the whole MMA fighter look. And I've been curious to see his stuff. He definitely didn't disappoint in this.
Not at all. This thing kicked off in a high gear. Love this fight. Victor Benjamin winning by KO. And again, for one of the matches that I only had really seen about 3 fights on this card that were kind of mentioned because of some of the names that are involved with them. This one, I didn't realize these two were going to be on the card at all. Liked it. Great solid start to Bloodsport. This had my interest. Again, when I first put it on, I was just checking it out to see what it was like. I was like, oh, out of curiosity. And I got fight 1 down. Okay. I watched fight 2. I'm like, oh, okay. Then I just kept going. It didn't stop from there. I got sucked right into it. Speaking of fight 2, we had Nick Nemeth, formerly Dolph Ziggler, taking on Brian Carter's favorite professional, Speedball Mike Bailey. Again, Speedball Mike Bailey has that, I believe it's more of a karate or Taekwondo type background. Nick Nemeth, of course, known for being a college wrestler, had competed quite a bit and won a lot of different tournaments and stuff like that. A lot of accolades to his name. So again, he does have that fighting background behind him. I thought this one was not quite as strong as the first one up until the ending. I thought the ending was great when out of nowhere, when Nemeth hit that chokehold on Bailey and just takes him right out. I think that's kind of when it picked my attention up a little bit more. But sadly, that was the end of the fight. Other than that, I didn't think these two clicked as well as I thought they might have.
Yeah, you might have a point there. This was also the most pro wrestling match out of all of them on this card, I think, too. Both of them were hamming it up pro wrestling style in this, doing a few, Bailey especially, doing some stuff that maybe belonged in Bloodsport, maybe didn't, but it was more entertaining than I thought it would be. And Nemeth looked good. He looked like he never forgot any of his collegiate wrestling style. And he kind of played the heel in this match too. And he kept knocking Bailey out of the ring and then laughing and not letting him back in, kind of thing. Again, this looked the least like a real fight, and yet it was still entertaining. All these matches, most of them were 5 minutes long, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
you'd kind of get into it, and then it would end, and on to the next one. So okay, cool.
And Brian trying to say that I agree with him. The Mike Bailey's garbage. It's not what I'm saying, Brian. I'm just saying that Bailey versus Nemeth didn't quite click the way some of the other fights on this card did. If you watched, you'd understand, but you won't watch because it's Mike Bailey. So don't worry about it. We're moving on. Fight number 3 was the first round in the women's tournament of Bloodsport. We had Lindsay Snow taking on Lady Frost. You mentioned Lady Frost earlier. A little bit more familiar with Lady Frost. I wasn't as familiar with Lindsay Snow, but Lindsay Snow comes out looking like a total badass in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see which one was more the cage fighter than the other one. Not to sell Lady Frost short. She's obviously physically gifted, looks very strong, has that kind of gymnastics kind of thing to her. She'll throw a couple of flips or a cartwheel in here and there. But when I saw them both enter and you saw Lindsay Snow covered in tats and with the braids and the mouth guard, and it was like, uh-oh, Lady Frost, you're in trouble.
Yeah, really was. And that's trouble came her way. Snow by tap out picks up the victory here in this fight. So we go to the next round of the women's tournament. And man, this fight right here, Papa Smokes, this one stood out like a sore thumb. Janai Kai versus Marina Shafir. We're talking about Marina Shafir, a very well-rounded MMA fighter. Janai Kai, the kick demon. And man, did Janai Kai look like a badass, but Marina Shafir stood above and beyond and just took this to task. Janai Kai getting some of those vicious kicks square on the chops of Marina Shafir, and then Marina Shafir would follow it up by the grounded Janai Kai taking those kicks away. Some great back and forth between these ladies, a hard-hitting fight, making it look like Marina Shafir is busted up badly by the end of this thing, making her chances against Lindsay Snow later in the night looking a little bit more impossible. This one did good storytelling, and it was a hell of a fight, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Marina Shafir looks real good when she comes to the ring. You know, she's a beautiful lady, but she's got that intense killer look to her when she comes to the ring that's just all business. And it's like, I wouldn't want to have to stand across the ring from her. Kai quite up to the challenge, but this was the ultimate striker versus wrestler clash right here. And Kai had a lot of success with those kicks, especially those high section kicks. And she got some big shots on Shafir, and Shafir selling it like she might have had the broken teeth in the back and all that stuff. But Kai, even when she got Shafir down, couldn't follow up with the wrestling. She can't hang with Shafir on the mat, so that was to her detriment. And she couldn't quite get the KO on Shafir, and therefore kind of fell victim to the superior wrestler.
Yeah, but a hell of a fight nonetheless. Yeah, that was Janai Kai's flaw in this one. So later in the night, we would be seeing Marina Shafir taking on Lindsay Snow to decide the winner of the women's tournament. Fight number 5, we had Matt Mikowski versus Charlie Dempsey. And I don't know if you know this, Papa Smokes. Charlie Dempsey is actually the son of one William Regal, currently working in NXT. And yeah, so I'm not sure if you knew that, but this ended up being one hell of a fight as well, too. Dempsey's got a lot of skill ahead of him. He was trained by William Regal, so again, you know he's got great training behind him. He's a solid kid, a really solid kid, and man, this was one hell of a fight.
Well, that makes so much sense now because Mikowski kind of looked good. You can see he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but then Dempsey came out and he wrestles that sort of British UK strong style. Yeah. And the way he looked with that bald head and the mustache. Have you ever seen that movie Monson that stars Tom that was in Batman, the guy that was Bane in Batman? What's his name again?
Yeah, Tom. Jesus, why is it slipping my mind right now? Here's the chat. Where's the chat? Help us out here. Yeah, he also plays Venom. I mean, I should know this, but
it's a movie about a
Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy.
That's Tom Hardy. Yeah. And the movie's about a notorious British psychopath and gangster from the past, and that's what Charlie Dempsey looks like, is that dude Bronson with the bald head and the mustache. He also looks like a younger Boz Rutan as well, which I mean is a huge compliment, and because he goes in there and smashes people up like Boz Rutan as well.
And Brian wants to know, is William Regal the same guy as Lord Stephen Regal? Yes, that would be the same gentleman right there, Brian. But yeah, no, Dempsey, this was the key thing, is that there was people from all companies across this show, including WWE, for the first time ever, allowing not only Charlie Dempsey, but also later in the night, we're going to talk about it, Shayna Baszler compete on this card as well, too, which I thought, again, showing a lot of class on the side of WWE to start allowing their people who, hey, maybe you don't have something going on this weekend at WrestleMania. Let's keep you in the spotlight and utilize you in another way and allow you to go bring that talent to some of these other companies.
Yeah, it is pretty nice, but I bet you they tell them, if you get hurt in this, we're not paying you till you come back.
Yeah, well, I mean, there could be that as well too. We're not too sure.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Dempsey he's got a world of potential. I think you can hear about him on Tuesday nights all the time on Taking Over with Ed and Astrid, always talking about Charlie Dempsey over there. Make sure to tune in or just check out NXT yourself. He could also be subject to the upcoming WWE draft. So I really strongly don't think he's quite bound for Raw or SmackDown just yet, but who knows? You never know these days. They look at NXT as almost being on par with those two shows now, kind of thing. So there is that opportunity. So we'll see how it goes. I can imagine he'll probably stick around NXT for a while, and I'm sure Ed and Astrid would agree with me both. But Dempsey picking up the win by a tap out here in what was one of the best fights of the night, for sure.
Just quickly, Bob, does Dempsey wrestle that kind of a shtick in NXT as well, like a strong style, British style, tough guy grappler type thing?
Yeah, I believe so. I haven't watched a lot, but what I've seen kind of along that direction anyway. I believe that they've started forming this whole really kind of pushing with a lot of the British guys, the whole catch as catch can style, and talking a little bit more about being part of these catch groups and stuff like that. So I like that idea. I mean, clearly that is a style that I appreciate and I adore. So I really like it, kind of thing. And I like where this kid's going. I think he's got a good look. I think he's strong. He's going to get, as he continues to develop, I just see great things coming his way.
Yeah, no, the look and the presence are there already. And then obviously his pedigree is something too. If Lord Regal's been training him all this time, he's got to have a wealth of old school wrestling training knowledge, and nowadays that's few and far between. So he's got the advantage that way, kind of like a guy like Braun Breaker probably does too.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Our next fight of the night, Pop Smokes, we had Fuminori Abi taking on Takuya Nomura. I probably pronounced that wrong, but Nomura ended up winning this one by chokehold. This one was again, like, I didn't have any problem with any of these. This was pretty good. I'm not familiar with either of these two guys, so not much that I can say about their career so far. Nothing about it really made them stand out in a way that I'm eager to go check. It's not that they did bad. It's just nothing about it sold me on, hey, I got to rush out to check these guys out a little bit more often.
Okay, then you didn't like this match as much as I did. I thought it was one of the better matches on this card. Listening to the commentators, they were saying that these guys used to be tag team partners for a long time, and they've had a big feud. So right there, as a viewer, these guys know each other like the back of their hand, and I felt like they had a chemistry in this match. This was one of the harder hitting matches, I thought, where these guys trusted each other to not injure each other and went pretty hard. And for me, this was one of the better matches. I liked it. Their slap fights were pretty good. They did some big maneuvers on each other. And just the action in this one struck me as good. I thought these two had chemistry.
Yeah. I'm just looking at my notes here. I'm trying to figure out why I didn't. I mean, maybe I just didn't write down as much as I thought I had that. Maybe I was just too high on the Dempsey fight prior to that one. So I can't believe it. I mean, I'm looking at fight seven, Eric Hammer and Lou Nixon. Again, two guys I didn't really know. I think that was the problem.
Good one too.
Started getting into names where I didn't know people too well.
Yeah. But the Abe Nomura match too had the some headbutts too, and that was the one where the guy got bloody as well too, right?
That's right. Shit.
They're making some heavy contact there, and that's what buddies will do. They trust each other, so they'll go a little harder on each other.
That's right. I've forgotten the Bloodsport that particular matchup, and again, that was kind of the thing. It was like up until this point for a show called Bloodsport, there hadn't been any color, and really no color for pretty much the rest of the night here from anybody, really.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was gonna hit a blade job or anything like that on this card, but still, with the nature of the fighting, anything can happen, from a bloody nose or lip to a forehead getting split open.
And I really do think that, again, you and I have seen a lot of pro wrestling and stuff like that. I do believe that between like all of these fights that we saw, there was at times some legitimate back and forth that, like you say, people that trust each other, but they also trust each other in terms of the professionalism that they have as fighters to begin with. So there wasn't a whole lot of like holding back either at the same time. Like some of this stuff connected a lot harder than it ever would in a professional wrestling ring, and they allowed it to. And I'm talking across the board really with this whole thing. There was a few times that I popped throughout the entire night because like, shit, that looked like it hurt a whole hell of a lot.
No, for sure. And all of these competitors being athletes, being legitimate martial artists and all that. If you've ever been around some karate or taekwondo or jiu-jitsu dojos, watch the guys training and sparring. There are some pretty spirited sparring matches, and this is kind of what this show reminded me of. Not everyone's used to fighting with each other, but they all know how to spar, and implicit in all that, in being a high-level student of the martial arts, is a overriding respect that you have to have for your opponent, similar to pro wrestling, but it's much more regimented in martial arts, is that you have to trust your opponent with your body just as he trusts you with his body. So there is that respect. You don't kick a guy's head off for no reason, or because you're pissed off at him, or because he stepped on your foot in the middle of the match. You don't drag your forearm and crank it up on somebody's windpipe when you're just in a sparring match or you're in an exhibition match of some kind. You just don't do that because you don't want him to do that to you. So this, again, reminded me of some of the dojo action I've seen in my past and participated in, where, yeah, it's a level of professionalism and respect for one another. We're going to have a good little tussle here. I'm going to try and you're going to try, but we're not going to kick each other's teeth in because of that respect.
Yeah, you bet. Papa Smokes, Brian Carter has a question for you. He said, when did the big start for Papa Smokes? Are you taking on a new gimmick?
Well, I've been using that for quite some time, haven't I? I'm not sure where it came from. I think it might have been organic from a few of the guys that have always called me Papa Smokes for a long time. And yeah, not sure, but it kind of sounds natural. I kind of like it.
Yeah, it's got a good ring to it. I agree. So, and I mean, obviously it does because it's caught the attention of superfan Brian Carter over here. So,
yeah. Well, he's only noticing 4 months after I started doing it.
Yeah, it's a 2024 thing, Brian. Get with the time. But I was just thinking, Pop, so as we were calling one of the matches for PPW here before. Speaking of people who belong in Bloodsport, I would like to see Morris Waltz be able to take part in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport one of these days.
That'd be cool. That's a guy that could totally hang in that. What about Mitch Clark?
Or Mitch Clark. Oh, yeah. Mitch Clark would be perfect for these things as well, too. So, yeah, a couple of great names right there. Going to go right over to, we got Royce Isaacs and Minoru Suzuki. Again, this was one where, I mean, it depends what you want to watch. Here we go. Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk. It's my boys. How's it going? Thanks for stopping in. Right as we start talking about Murder Grandpa, it's like as if we've summoned Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk into the chat. Murder Grandpa taking on Royce Isaacs in this fight. Again, if you want to watch an old man take a absolute shit kicking at times. And man, he's just one of these guys, like, I don't know what it is. He just stands there and takes a licking from people and sits there laughing in their faces at it. I don't know what it is about him. People love the hell out of him. The older he gets, it seems like people still love him more and more each and every time. It was far from the best fight of the night, but the crowd absolutely were into this one.
Yeah, and Suzuki has a special relationship with pain. I don't think it bothers him. He might even like it, and that's what's kind of funny, that you can try and hurt the guy, but it never really seems to hurt him. But this was one of the matches. This was another one of the ones that highlighted pro wrestling. And Suzuki's good. He's very experienced. He knows how to work the crowd with his facial expressions, just taking those hellacious slaps and chops and just turning with that murderous smile all the time. And the crowd was eating this up. I was entertained. I've seen his shtick for a long time. I first saw him when he was still a serious and super badass wrestler in the 90s and all that. But all credit to him, man. He comes and tours the States and everybody wants to see him, probably because he's not going to wrestle for too much longer. And it's an experience to see him. He's wild. He makes a good entrance. The guy knows how to work in the ring and work a crowd too. I got to hand it to him for that.
Yeah, I mean, he puts on a show, that's for sure. So, speaking of putting on a show, Timothy Thatcher, somebody that you and I are both big fans of, Papa's folks, took on Axel Tischer in this match. Axel Tischer, don't know a lot about this guy. Definitely was interested in seeing Timothy Thatcher in this one. Turned out to be a pretty decent fight. Still, maybe not the top fight of the night, but strong, because this is right up Thatcher's alley. Loved it, hard hitting, enjoyed this fight.
Yeah, Thatcher's another guy that has a simple gimmick. He's a crazy tough guy, but he also knows how to work with the crowd and work with his opponent. Those crazy facial expressions and his missing teeth and all of that just go to a character of absolute wrestling excellence and old school toughness. And Thatcher, yeah, he looks great in all of his matches. I love this guy.
Yeah, and again, it's great to have him back in MLW. Again, talk about MLW right at the end of this whole thing here for a minute before we go off the air, Pops, folks. I got 3 more fights to talk about before we are wrapped up on Bloodsport, and this was the one that was heavily advertised because of the big deal of WWE lending talent over to Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Shayna Baszler taking on Masa Slamovich. This one was the one that kind of got a whole internet wrestling community interested in this particular card. What made people want to watch it. So that's a great job on their part, being able to get a name like Baszler in there. Perfect for this type of style. Masa Slamovich, who I've seen quite a bit of lately with TNA Wrestling, doing a wonderful job over there at TNA. Ever since I watched her, the first match of hers, I'm like, here's someone. I think she's got a good head on her shoulders. Sounds tough. Looks tough, probably is legitimately capable of kicking the shit out of 99% of people on this planet. And
that looks like it.
Yeah, and they did this video package prior to this fight, the only one they did really of this entire night. She's a good talker. I believed what she was saying about wanting to get in there. Her Shayna, she wasn't here to allow Shayna to make a name off her. She's big league, and Masa was going to make the name off of Shayna, and really, really strong in terms of what she was laying down here. And then the fight between these two ladies. This was one of the best fights of the night. If you're going to build a card as a card with something like this, you got to deliver. And I'm telling you, these two ladies not only delivered, but that crowd really played up the whole Shayna is the outsider gimmick to this. A whole lot of fuck you, Shayna comments going on throughout this entire fight. This was wonderful. This was what this night was about. And I really enjoyed this one.
Oh, very much so. And this fight pretty much made the whole card in terms of PR and getting out there to wrestling communities, because my God, WWE letting one of their wrestlers do an indie show while they're under contract, unthinkable, unheard of. But as we've seen lately, it seems like their way of thinking is changing a little bit. And we've just heard in the past weeks, Paul Levesque coming out and saying like, well, I'd like to soften our stance on not working with other companies. I would maybe like to work with other companies. And everybody just kind of like, oh my God, especially a guy like me who's heard them, listened to them just completely deny the existence of all other professional wrestling companies in the world. And now they're starting to just let a little bit of their talent trickle out there and do some fun stuff and taking a bit of shine off of that, right? Like that's not hurting Baszler to do this show. In fact, it's probably helping her, even though it's not against another WWE opponent. She's out there. And if her gimmick is MMA fighter, tough girl, cage fighter, then it makes sense. Put her in Bloodsport and give her a win or a tough fight or something to hang her hat on. And the fans get sold to that even more because she's not just a WWE wrestler following the scripts, doing whatever each week. Damn, she'll enter a rough style MMA fighting wrestling show and get a win out of it. Good stuff, really.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing that's great here too is, again, it shows that WWE is putting the trust in working with TNA or Impact Wrestling's roster, because Masha Slamovich coming from over there, we've seen that Jordan Grace made that crossover into the Royal Rumble recently. So again, there seems to be this slow build, but a little bit of a working relationship building between the two companies. And this is great too for Masha Slamovich, who's still very young and new in this business, to be able to work with someone. Yeah, Shayna Baszler might not be a Rhea Ripley or a Becky Lynch or a Bayley or anybody that's at the top of a WWE card right now, but she's a legitimate ass kicker, and she's also been there. She, like they mentioned, a former two-time women's tag team champion, the NXT women's champion. This is a legitimate ass kicker. So for Masha Slamovich to hang there with Shayna Baszler and have some of those eyes that were paying attention because it's Shayna now being exposed to this other woman who's coming up in the ladies division of professional wrestling, it's a great opportunity for Masha Slamovich going forward. Now that people have kind of seen her work, seen her name, they might now be more inclined to go check something out over on the Impact side.
And not to forget that Shayna Baszler is going to go back to WWE if she had a good experience in this match with Slamovich and say, yeah, this girl's legit. She can do it. I liked her. I would work with her again anytime. And if someone in the big company is there saying that, that's good for you. You might get picked up at some point. And it's all about networking, as it is in a lot of businesses. But you have to know that a lot of these lady wrestlers and men wrestlers as well, but there's not as many lady wrestlers. They all know each other. Lots of them have worked together because there's just not as many lady wrestlers as there are. So they all know each other, and this is good if you can have good matches, make good connections, and get to know people in other companies. It only helps your chances of getting booked for money deals.
Yeah, you bet. And Brad's got an interesting question that's just come in here, Papa Smokes. Which promotion is considered higher tier, MLW or GCW? You know, I guess on who you ask, MLW's clearly been around longer. I think essentially people know their name, but people really seem to love, like wrestlers seem to love working for GCW. They seem to have captivated a certain niche audience that really works for them, that they have done really well with selling their particular events and their pay-per-views. So I really don't know what to say about that, other than I'll give the credit to MLW, not just because I'm an MLW fan, but because of the length of the company and the fact that their championships are world championships and actually recognized currently as world championships. It's easy to say as an indie promotion that your championship is a world championship, but until it's officially recognized as a world championship, it doesn't play in the same ballpark where MLW is in that ballpark with the WWEs, the AEWs, the Impact Wrestlings, the New Japans, and those particular companies.
Yeah, I would have to agree with your remarks, Munson, but I guess I have to ask a question though too. Does GCW only run shows in California, or does it go around? Like, obviously it had some involvement with this show in Philly, but I always thought of GCW as a fairly regional company, mostly throwing their shows in Southern California. But I'm not sure. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
That could be right, but again, neither of us follow GCW close enough to really have the answer to that. That's where we need Bobby Stats. Where's Bobby Stats here tonight, Pops? Folks? We
Yeah.
need the Stats man to help us out on that one. But moving on, we got two more fights to talk about here as we wrap up Bloodsport. We have got the finals, the women's tournament. We've got Lindsay Snow versus Marina Shafir. Shafir really still selling it from early on in the night. Before we get to that, Brian says they are all over the country now. So again, they are essentially touring. So, I mean, I guess we can give them a little bit of a credit there that they have moved past the regional spots.
Yeah, it just, to me, that company has the stench of Joey Ryan and Jelly Janela on it, and I just can't.
Yeah, that's, again, it's preference. It's not our thing, not what we're going to watch. We'll still support MLW despite the lack of MLW being good lately. A lot of MLW not being very good lately. Although I got to say, our boy Akira Kwan's back in MLW, Papa.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
excited about that.
Yeah, teaming up with Atrocity Cruel himself, Mr. Mods Kruger, to reform Contra. I was very happy to see Tristan Tai, aka Akira Kwan, back in MLW.
Same, and I guess we'll get there, but that War Chamber card is not looking too good. I don't want to watch that, but well, if we're going to review it, I guess I will.
Oh, that already happened. The War Chamber, or didn't it? No. War Chamber. No, yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. We watched that. That was the one Andre and I watched. Right. Yeah, it wasn't great. I don't think. Yeah, that was the one. I swear, Brian, help me out here. That was War Chamber, right? We've got the War Chamber 2, I think, coming up on April the 20th, or I guess the 20th, or the day after. I guess that one being on YouTube. How about this, Papa Smokes? We can do a review of that one. We'll brief over it together if you really feel like suffering through that. So.
Well, sure. We got to talk about something, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get back to some MLW reviews here on the channel of some sort, for sure. But we got the women's final, the tournament final. We've got Lindsay Snow, who looks fresh after coming out quick on her matchup earlier in the night against Marina Shafir, really selling that beatdown from Janai Kai going into this thing, making it seem like Shafir had absolutely no chance. But these ladies put on a hell of a show here, Papa Smokes. Great back and forth between Marina Shafir and Lindsay Snow. At times, I thought Lindsay Snow was going to take it. They sold me on it. And then Marina fought back with everything she's got, ends up picking up the big victory by referee's stoppage. Nonetheless, this was fantastic. Marina Shafir, a total badass in this thing. Again, so much better than what I hear about when she's working over in the big companies and everything like that. I don't know that they know properly what to do with some of these real badass ladies that can truly fight like a Marina Shafir. She really needs to be taken more seriously in the way she's conducted in professional wrestling, in my opinion.
And I think for some legit martial artists, learning the pro wrestling style is difficult because you have to unlearn many of your natural tendencies to strike quickly, to do things with snap, like very, very hard. You have to slow it down for pro wrestling. You have to not hurry through everything. So same thing as Ronda Rousey trying to get into a pro wrestling ring. It's not just learning the style. You have to unlearn so many of your good habits and your good tendencies towards shoot fighting that it's difficult sometimes. And especially depending on your opponent. If you have an opponent that has no martial arts experience, but wrestling experience, it's a whole different thing. And again, that chemistry might not be there. But I sense Shafir is more comfortable with a martial artist as an opponent. And obviously this struggle against Lindsay Snow was tremendous. And this, as well as the Shayna Baszler match, were some of the only ones that, because they were further along in the ladies tournament, there's a bit of an angle developing, and that makes it more interesting too, right? Even just the smallest angle that Shafir had been knocked around by Janae Kai in her previous match might have still been weaker, might have been vulnerable because of some of those head kicks and all that. So at least there's that little story. There's somebody fighting from underneath with a fresher, stronger opponent, and the fans had somebody to root for. Do you want to root for the underdog? You want to root for the wrestler that looks like they're in the much more dominant position? Take your choice. But obviously this crowd went with Shafir, and what a huge pop when she pulled off the win.
You bet. Yeah. And you know what? I really did like throughout the night, too. I forgot to mention this earlier, is that they were giving us the records of everybody who was stepping into these fights. This particular fighter is 3-1, or they're 2-0 kind of thing, or this is their debut at Bloodsport. I liked it because it had that fight feel to it. It really kind of told a story about their position within Bloodsport, and it also didn't undersell anybody. Yeah, some people had really good, strong victories behind them and stuff like that. But even as we're going to the main event now, and we're talking about Josh Barnett, even he hasn't completely had a flawless record. Josh Barnett has had a record that has seen him fall a couple of times throughout this whole thing. And speaking of that main event, Josh Barnett taking on Johnny Bloodsport. You know him as John Hennigan. We know him as Johnny Impact, Johnny this, Johnny that, whatever it is, he adapts to it. I like Johnny. I like him. This was a little mismatched. They're both really strong professionals, but I think coming off of two really strong women's matches, this didn't hit quite as strongly as the two ladies matches. It was still good, but for a main event, it was kind of like it was just tiny little off the mark compared to the last two fights that we saw.
I tend to agree with that as well. A bit of the intensity was missing, and I'm not sure Johnny Drip, he's very good athlete. He's very agile and all that. We've all seen him doing parkour and stuff like that. He's an incredible athlete, but he has a much different style of fighting than Josh Barnett, who's an MMA guy all the way. So again, you kind of got that clash. I partly like that. That's kind of what I want to see, but you might not get the match out of that extreme clash of styles like that as well. And I think this match suffered just a little bit for that fact.
It did. And again, when we say suffered, I don't feel like it suffered to the point where I disliked it. It's just there was other stuff that stood out a lot stronger. And with this being a main event, you become a little tiny bit more critical of it. But still, Josh Barnett is a total badass. I like Johnny Bloodsport. He's a great dude. He's had a great career. And overall, I got to say, Pops, I enjoyed Bloodsport enough that I want to watch more Bloodsport. And they announced that they're going to Japan next. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport Japan is going to be the next series. And we know how heavy-hitting Japanese wrestling can be, the strong style that they do out there. I'm expecting quite the show when they take Bloodsport to Japan now. I'm sold. I want to watch Bloodsport moving forward.
Yeah, same here. And I think a lot of fans might be like that. I think for me, it's that now that I've watched the first one, and like you were saying, they bring up some of the previous matches and the records and stuff. Now I kind of want to see what happens next time and who they bring in and who that lost this time is going to win next time and vice versa. It's cool. It's different. It's a fusion. They're trying something else. Not all wrestling, like pro wrestling fans, are going to take to this. But I think if lots checked it out, lots would like it.
I agree. I really did. I thought it was great. I'm glad you did too, Bob Spokes. As soon as I started watching, I'm like, you know what? I think this is right up our alley. This is something that we need to talk about. And I think moving forward, I think we'll do in the same vein. We will watch these, and then the following Ring Respect, we will start reviewing Josh Barnett's Bloodsport frequently here on the channel because this is right up our alley and want to support anything that we really appreciate is out there in professional wrestling. But man, Bob Spokes, we are just over the top of the hour, and we know that we got that awesome honor ramble coming up. Auntie Collins is going to be joined by Kimmy here tonight to talk all things Ring of Honor, talk about the fallout from Supercard of Honor, which a lot went down last weekend there for the ROH crew. So we're going to make way here for them. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we get into say our goodbyes here, Bob Spokes?
No, not really. Had a good time talking about Bloodsport, and I'm also thinking to the future. I think we should put this as part of our reviewing stable of ideas that we go forth with, and let's put it in the rotation and let's get into some more Bloodsport. I like it.
You bet. Josh Barnett, your Bloodsport is Video Bro approved officially. And moving forward, we're going to continue watching and reviewing. Glad you liked it, Papa Smokes. Now it gets to the painful part of the show where I have to get rid of all the money and throw up the most expensive ticker in professional wrestling today. It's Papa Smokes' ticker. Tell them where they can find you.
That's right, everyone. Check out that beautiful and lustrous ticker that I have. I can be found at Elon Musk's free speech wonderland known as X. I am at smokes_papa, and you can find me on Twitch at papa_smokes_.
You bet. And Barry saying he agree or not. What are you saying? We're saying, Barry, we're just about done, but you, my friend, should stick around a little bit afterwards because we got Andy Collins and Kimmy coming up with that honor ramble so you can talk all things Ring of Honor. As for myself, there's my ticker down below. You can find me on the X at Real Bobby Munson, Instagram and Threads. It's Video Bros SK, and Twitch is VideoBro_Bobby Munson, including every Saturday afternoon. You can get a new match for Prairie Pro Wrestling with the Video Bros on the commentary team. And Pops, folks, get this. On Saturday, April the 20th, not only do we have PPW Presents Smoke Show, but we've also got the title match between Sheik Akbar Shabazz and Colton Kelly coming out on PPW's YouTube channel. What a big day for Prairie Pro Wrestling that day. And again, like I mentioned earlier in the night, next Thursday night, we're going to be joined by NJ right here on the channel, who's going to be chilling out, talking all things PPW Smoke Show. We got a lot to unfold, Pop Smokes. The tag tournament or tag matches are going to be epic on this night as we're looking for a champion. Barry saying, I could tell them how much better TNA was. You do that, my friend. I'll be producing, and I'll make sure your comment gets on the screen. I want to thank everyone for joining us for another edition of Ring Respect Radio. We are out. Thank you very much. We will see you next Thursday. Take care, everyone.